Hi little berries, welcome back to an episode of my Autism Diaries. Today I thought I'd talk about something that you don't normally hear people talk about. Autism is pretty much mostly associated with behavioural issues and issues that people think we can help and that we're putting on and everything. But there is another side of autism, which is the physical side, like the neurological, coordination, balance, spatial awareness, depth perception kind of thing. And I've touched on that on previous videos, but I just wanted to do a video particularly on that subject. What you'll notice a lot of the time with people with autism is that we will often have very either severe or obvious balance problems, and it's not the kind of balance that you practice and get better at. It's I cannot balance on one foot. Never could as a child, still can't as an adult, despite doing loads of yoga, despite practicing, still cannot do it. It took me ages to learn to tie my shoelaces. I was 7 or 8 before I learned to tie my shoelaces. Before that, I had to have people do it for me. Even just, turning left and right, like differentiating left and right. Yes, it's very simple to think about, but actually doing it. When someone says, look to your right, okay, that way, yeah, okay. It's often very, very difficult when someone says to navigate your way around things, because your perception is different in different directions, and when they're giving you instructions about where to go, your mind moves in those different directions. You're like, right, okay, right, I'll have to think about that quite a bit. My wife also says to me a lot that I have very poor spatial awareness, that I'm not always mindful about where things are around me. Even if I know I'm very near to something, I think I'll miss it, but I end up bumping into it. Or I think I'm closer to something than I really am. I can't always feel things around me. When it comes to driving, sometimes that can be a bit of an issue. I am overcautious when I'm reverse parking, or when I'm just driving down a road. I always stop a little bit further away. I always make sure I'm safe every single time. I have been known to walk down the aisle at work and just knock a bin over and not even realise I've done it until I'm halfway up the office, and people go, Erin, what have you just done? You're not going to clear that up? And I'm like, oh, I didn't notice. I seriously did not notice. Depth perception is a massive thing as well. Things look further away to me sometimes than they truly are. I often have to touch things to realise that they're not quite so far away, or when sometimes I feel like something is sort of like moving like this and actually it's a flat surface, and something looks 3D to me sometimes when it's actually 2D. Lack of coordination, lack of spatial awareness, lack of depth, have different things with depth perception are not seen as problems really, because people just say, well, that's just you, It's nothing much, and sometimes it can be that bad that you can end up having a separate diagnosis of dyspraxia. But actually, things like dyspraxia, dyslexia, ADHD, Tourette's, they sort of like go into this sort of bubble where if they all intersect or there's something going on, you have to meet certain criteria. And sometimes people seem to have those conditions, whereas actually it's autism that is the main condition. A lot of people talk about fear of heights, and it's a natural thing to be afraid of hurting oneself. Just being on a small height is a big deal. I remember when I was at primary school, we had a vaulting horse, and what we had to do was spring on top of it and then jump off. And when I was standing on it, of course it's how high my head is, I was something like 6 foot off the floor, not too much taller than my teacher. They said, Erin, that is not high enough to be vertigo. Just get off it. And I just could not jump off the thing, even something small. I remember when I went onto a diving board, I didn't dive, I just jumped, but I stood there for ages because I couldn't see the surface of the water. I couldn't work out where it was. I couldn't work out how far I had to go, so I just leapt. And I think I did a sort of like just a bomb into the water. Sometimes I've put that down to the fact that I don't have 20/20 vision. I have very poor eyesight, especially when going swimming when I couldn't wear my glasses. But even then, I should be able to at least distinguish where things are, even though they may be a bit blurry. But this is not just things being blurry, this is things being completely distorted and looking like they're further away than they are, and sometimes not even be able to see things that plainly are there. It's a symptom that is kind of ignored, and people think that you're just clumsy, or you're just doing it for attention, or it's just you, maybe, that it doesn't need a diagnosis. But that's the whole thing about autism. It has so much criteria, and in order to be diagnosed, you need to meet that criteria. And even in my diagnostic papers, it mentions that I have had balance and coordination problems my whole life. My adoptive mother, when she took me on, realised that I wasn't developing the coordination that I should be. So she sent me to dance lessons to learn ballet and tap, which really did help, although it didn't make me into an expert. I was terrible at ballet. A lot of it has to do with balance and poise, which I was very bad at. And sometimes interpreting what people say, like I used to go horse riding, and whenever we were warming up or we were on different reins, our instructor would say, pass left to left. What does that mean? It means your left hand needs to be adjacent to the other person's left hand. I found that out just by working out and watching people. Oh, it's that hand, right. But then she said, but faster pace takes priority. So does the left to left go out the window? I don't know. So again, tying shoelaces, even something like telling the time because of the going round, which way does it go around the clock, can be so hard for people with autism to grasp direction and balance and proportion and physically knowing where things are. Also, it can affect their handwriting. If handwriting is particularly scruffy or bad, it doesn't mean that they're just putting no thought into it whatsoever. Sometimes it's a case of simply not remembering which way round to do your E, or to do a B as a D or something like that. I often find when people say go round to the right or round to the left a bit confusing, because when you go round to the right, you change direction and then come back. So I'm actually going left, or am I going right? That's a bit confusing. There's someone who I grew up with who ended up turning out to be autistic. They wouldn't say left or right. It was over here, over there, or that, or this, or they'd find a plot point where they've been somewhere. You know where that is, where you go round there and then up here. Never left or right, and it's always trying to explain something as it happens in your own mind without realising that direction is fundamental when giving instructions. The problem with depth perception can also extend to such as going on merry-go-rounds or riding a bike or in a car, where things are whizzing around a lot of you. Someone with a neurological condition like autism will actually see something a little bit more horrific, or they sometimes won't see things at all and they'll start to feel travel sick or completely lose their lack of awareness. Look out for that symptom, and also look out for any other balance problems as well, because it may well be a symptom of autism, or it could just simply be dyspraxia on its own without autism being there. With this particular condition, there are so many things and so many areas that you need to hit in order to get a diagnosis. It's okay looking at things individually, but it's when you look at it all together. So autism is like the central piece, so to speak, with all these different things coming off, such as things like social awkwardness, literal thinking, spatial awareness, noticing things people don't notice, not having a filter. It's loads of different things, and they have to go right back into childhood and really scrutinise and analyse before they will ever even consider giving a diagnosis. So hopefully that's left you with some food for thought. It's just a very short, quick one. I can't really say more than I've already said about things like direction and spatial awareness. But if you've got any comments, please leave them below. And I'll see you later, little berries. Bye!